This week's weekly rant is going to be on a nice catch-22 situation, which I would like to call requirements. Now, I would like to preface this weekly rant as saying that the IT Babble podcast will start up again soon. Patrick is relocating, and it's made it difficult for us to coordinate and do our podcast. So I might start loading these into the channel, the podcast channel, so that content is still rolling, so we have something there. But let me get back to the weekly rant, which I'm going to keep up even after the podcast begins. All right. And I'm trying to stop saying all right. I say it too much, so mental note, do not say all right. Requirements. Catch-22 situation. Very, very common scenario. Something doesn't work. The IT department says, well, we just need the requirements. The people who are the end users, they don't actually know what the capabilities are. So they can't give the IT department the requirements. So they report a problem and the IT department quote unquote fixes it, but they're really always just working on a symptom. They're not actually working on the problem, or they're not making a plan, a larger plan that encompasses everything that people need, because they want all of those people to tell them exactly what they need. Now, a lot of people who are not in technology believe that when this happens, the IT department just doesn't want to work, because it's a really good way to not work. I mean, if you think about it, it's like, I'm telling you that I'll do whatever you want, but you need to communicate it to me in a certain way, and you don't know how to communicate it. So we get nothing done. The truth is somewhere in the middle, because this all just comes down to different personalities. I find that most people genuinely don't want to go to work and do nothing because it's pointless and boring. They actually like to do things. But at the same time, those same people are very afraid of making mistakes or overstepping their position. So in different parts of the world, especially if you're working in international schools, you'll find people who are very afraid of overstepping their position. They are not empowered to tell you their ideas. All right? Oh, I said all right again. Instead of editing it out, I'm just going to punish myself. Stop saying all right. Back to it. There are many ways to approach this problem, but the first thing I would like to do is define for both the end users and the IT department how the whole concept of the requirement debate is pointless and can't work. It just simply cannot work. If you're in IT and you say we're waiting for the requirements, you're making a mistake, and whatever happens is going to be your fault. If you're not in IT and you're sitting around stewing because things are not working, you're also at fault. Because the complexity of systems is far beyond what most people realize. Now, systems do not necessarily require someone to be highly intelligent to operate them. We're not talking about brain surgery. But we are talking about thousands and thousands of settings and options that a person in the IT department can't simply define without input from people. I'm going to review a few interfaces just on the surface. And I hope after I'm finished reviewing it, everyone realizes the complexity involved in this process. Then we'll move on to the solution. This is Drupal. This is a content management system like WordPress. It allows someone to deploy websites. They can have e-commerce, they can be for online learning, whatever. It has thousands of modules that can be accessed and added for free to give it power. It is by far one of the most powerful content management systems on the planet. It will make something like Final Site look like a child's toy. However, a lot of people will not manage or set up Drupal because there are too many decisions to make. Therefore, they'll go with something like Final Site because a lot of the decisions are made for them. If I want to build a website for my school with Drupal, I have to go into each one of these areas and do some type of configuration. Maybe the configuration will be basic. Maybe the configuration will be complicated. But I have to go into each one and review them. In addition, I have to work on the modules. These are all modules. I'm going to scroll very slowly so that you can see how many modules there are in the basic package. I've only added 2 modules to this. This is still the basic package. I'm working on a new website right now with Drupal, and each one of these has some level of configuration. Maybe I can accept the default. Maybe I can't. Maybe I can accept the default for a while and then I have to configure it. The point being, this is thousands of decisions to make. And I would consider Drupal, on a scale of 1 to 10 in terms of IT administration, about a 4 in terms of complexity. It's really not that hard. The hardest thing is implementing and customizing themes, and that's just with the graphics. Google Apps Admin Console. This looks pretty simple, right? Just a few little boxes to press. Go into Apps. App Settings. 10 here, 52 here. I haven't added any here, but I probably will because I'm going to want to use some single sign-on. 52 additional services. These are services I haven't even set up yet. This is the basic Google Suite. These are additional services. Each one must be configured. Each one. Notice how it says on for everyone? Well, for every group of users I have, administrative users, high school users, middle school, primary, high school students, middle school students, pre-K students, I have to configure permissions for each group. Not just one time, but each group. All right. 10 basic apps. Said all right again. Gotta stop. 10 basic apps, 52 additional, and even more in the marketplace. PowerSchool. I'm not showing the PowerSchool administrative consoles. They would take too long to go through. They're massive. The implementation planner for PowerSchool is like reading a small dictionary. This is the parent demographics page. I do have reports. This is parent demographics page. Highly customized though. Highly customized. This has English. It has Chinese. It has lots and lots of fields and decisions. There are decisions being made on this page when parents do things. This is one page. Look at how many pages there are. Now, some of these, you're like, these are built in, you don't configure them. That's right. The blue ones, these are ones I've created. I've created all the blue ones based on various plans, procedures, and needs of the school. That's a lot of blue files. This is only one section of PowerSchool. This is the parent section. This isn't the teachers or the students. This is just for the parent portal. So that's a lot of blue. The Office 365 Admin Center. So I can admin both Google and Office 365. I like to make sure I keep my skills up on both. Again, just like Google, there are many, many features that have to be set up and configured. Reports alone, security and compliance reports. I spent 2 hours last week just making new reports that show up on my dashboard. 2 hours just making reports, and all I'm really doing is selecting some options and saying show up on my security homepage so that I don't have to go into the report. I just want to see the graphs. But each one of these sections, main sections, requires configuration. The Office software requires configuration. User groups require configuration. What to do with users when they reach a certain point, like when they leave the school, how long do they get to stay active, all of that. Groups for permissions, people accessing things, sharing mailboxes. It goes on and on. Rooms, equipment, sites, public website. Each one of these things is basically its own separate piece of software, and it has to be set up and configured. Now I hope it is very clear that two parties waiting for the other one to either provide requirements or provide details for what is possible is very, very difficult. It is nearly impossible. Approaching the situation based on feature and feature configuration is a losing battle. You're never, ever going to get there. What you need to do is have a plan that you can communicate to your IT department. And that plan needs to be about the school and what you're trying to achieve, or the business and what you're trying to achieve. For example, I have high school students who are on a BYOD program. I want them to be able to walk into the building, sign into the internet. And when they do that, I want to be able to monitor what they're doing. And I want to make sure they can only use one device. Clear. The IT department can then achieve that. Another example. I want parents to be able to easily communicate problems they find on reports back to the principals, not the teachers. I don't want the teachers to be able to be contacted. Clear. That is a clear process with an objective that's measurable. If you notice in each one, I have a measurable objective. I have a way to make a tick box for each thing I want to achieve. If there's 4 things I want to achieve, I would score 4. And if I only scored 3, I would have 1 outstanding. And in the IT department, I can come back to you and say, I was able to do 1, 2, and 3, but 4 is a challenge. I'm not really sure how to do it, or we need additional resources. Unless everyone is on the same page with the plan, and that plan is connected to measurable outcomes that normal people can understand, then there's no way you're going to get past constantly running into individual problems with hundreds and hundreds of apps or features that you've got running within your ecosystem. One thing that I like to profess to people is when they implement a new system of any kind. I don't care if it's just a simple portfolio system for students to show their parents their work, or something like PowerSchool. One thing I like to profess is, when it's set up, do your absolute best to turn everything off. Turn it off. Disable features. Then, start with the core. What's the core objective? Work with the school, come up with the core objectives, enable them one by one, test them one by one. Keep everything off that isn't absolutely needed. And as time goes on, demands will be made. And as long as those demands are articulated with goals, then those features are enabled. By default, a lot of companies or products or engineers, when they deploy things, they believe they're doing it in a best case scenario, meaning most people want this, so I'm going to turn it on. Now, when it comes to security, there's some non-negotiables with networks and other things that have to be done. But after those non-negotiables are settled, and those non-negotiables are non-negotiables, so the IT department shouldn't be coming to you and asking if you want passwords or not, or if those passwords need to be, 8 characters mixed with capital letters and numbers. That's something they're supposed to know. No one should have to put those basic requirements on an IT department. They should know that it's best practice. That is true. But when it comes to features being deployed, like in Gmail or in Calendar or in Office 365 Office and how it's distributed, when it comes to those things, when it comes to these features, people will say, okay, this is best case. The last 3 schools wanted it. I will turn it on. That's really not a good idea. Each school is different. Each culture and each environment is different. It's not difficult to switch things on. It is difficult to switch things off. It is difficult to disconnect people from a bad process that they've been using. It is easier to get people into a new process if they're not switching over from something. All right, that is my weekly rant. Everyone try to bring it back in. I did say all right again. I said it at the end. I need to cut it out completely. I'm sorry. Back here, end of the weekly rant. And remember, in order for everyone to be working towards the same goals, in order for any organization, a school, or a business to grow, goals and outcomes need to be articulated so everyone understands where to go. And asking people to be completely specific about features that they'll never understand and menus that they'll never see, it's a bad approach for IT. And for non-IT people, remember that it is more complicated than you realize. There are a lot of things that are working together and that have to be turned on or turned off and coordinated, and just saying do it isn't enough.